Vigilantes? Thank you for being with us today. And today I have the pleasure of introducing you guys to, and it's the truth. I am very fond of Paul Puey and his work over the years. Back in the day before the Bitcoin civil wars, we had kind of a rebel group within Bitcoin. And these were the guys behind the LibBitcoin implementation of Bitcoin. And this was led by Amir Taki, Cody Wilson. I think Vitalik was even part of it as well. Anyhow, the LibBitcoin implementation was what was being used for back in the day, dark wallet. And dark wallet was something that we were all very hopeful of, but then something happened with that team, and right around the time Ethereum came into the game, LibBitcoin was kind of abandoned. And then Paul Puey, who's here with us, he created a wallet at the time called Airbits, and that has mutated into now Edge, which is a self-custody exchange that I think we're going to be starting to really, we are not affiliated with anyone. We don't even do affiliate marketing really, as you guys have noticed, because we like to be as independent as possible, so that we're always critical about anything in crypto, because we're here to shill for you guys. And so, Paul, thank you for being with us, and thank you for everything that you've done in crypto. We really appreciate it.
There we go. Unmute. Thanks for having me on the show, Rafael. It's been a while since we've chatted. I know we met in the early days back. I love how you mentioned it, before the civil wars of Bitcoin. Those are the good old days when everyone was happy-go-lucky. Let's go take down the banks, take down the government, bring financial privacy, autonomy to the masses all through Bitcoin. And of course, the industry has changed a bit. We've kind of changed alongside with it and adopted while still believing in some of those core principles. So happy to share some of that information with you and what we think this industry is doing and how we're participating in the course of financial independence from the big man. So yeah, thanks for having me. Glad to be on the show.
So I need to kind of apologize to you in a sense, because I was under the impression for a second there that you needed to do KYC in order to use the exchange functions within Edge. And I come to learn now that my assumption was wrong, that only has to do with using fiat on your exchange.
Yeah.
Can you please explain that with us?
Yeah, so we have two types of exchange functionality in Edge. One is crypto to fiat, fiat to crypto. Those obviously have to go through a lot of financial institutions that are connected to the banking rails, and therefore they have to do a lot of KYC. Ironically, though, one of our partners, when we had first launched, didn't require any KYC at all. So one of our partners, Biddy, allows you to buy and sell Bitcoin in all of Europe using a SEPA transfer, which is kind of like a wire transfer, but more specific to Europe. And it's faster, cheaper. And that's it. You would just simply put in bank information and buy Bitcoin. You didn't have to provide a passport, ID, name, address, email, phone number, none of that. So Biddy didn't see any of that information. Now, of course, your bank still has that information, but you've already given that to your bank. Right. The whole point of not KYCing is it's, if I've already got someone that has my information, why should I have to give it to someone else to potentially compromise that sensitive info? So in a way, there was a way to buy with no KYC inside of Edge, but it was limited to a certain region. Obviously, due to a lot of the regulations that have happened in Europe, they've gotten more strict where no KYC has smaller limits. It used to be up to $5,000 a day. Now it's only $1,000 or euro a day to do those purchases in Europe. However, to answer your question as far as where you don't need KYC, our crypto to crypto exchange functionality in Edge actually links up to over 8 different swap partners. These services similar to, back in the day, Shapeshift, where you'd send some crypto, you get some crypto back. We've got 8 different exchange partners. And one of those is actually a decentralized exchange aggregator, a DEX aggregator that aggregates like Uniswap, 0x, and a bunch of other protocols on Ethereum to be able to do Ethereum to tokens, tokens to Ethereum. And since that is a DEX, absolutely no KYC. If that can give you the better price, that's what Edge is going to show. Unfortunately, right now, of course, Ethereum fees are really high, so you'll pay the pretty penny on being able to swap with Ethereum, but that's no KYC. We have other partners as well that, while they might be more centralized, meaning they're like a Shapeshift, you send money to them, they just have a company policy that they don't do KYC. So they do have to do blockchain analytics to say, hey, is this money coming from, or is it going to an address that they believe should be blacklisted for whatever weird reason that they think they are never able to share that information. But if they do decide that this is a blacklisted transaction, they'll just return your money. And it's like, sorry, we're not supposed to touch this, return your money to you, but never KYC. There are some partners, though, that they will do spot check KYC, meaning that they'll occasionally, in order to complete a transaction, you'll have to provide some KYC information for them to complete a crypto to crypto swap. But by and large, there you go. That's the app. By and large, you won't have to do any KYC to do a lot of the swap functionality.
Yeah, I personally love the Edge wallet. I've been using it since you guys were called Airbits. I've been using Edge.
Way back.
So yeah, I love it. I love it.
Cool. Thank you.
So so let's talk about the cryptocurrencies that you guys support. So obviously all ERC20 tokens, you mentioned Ethereum. You use 0x exchange on the back end. That's pretty cool. And up in terms of privacy coins, you guys service Monero, correct?
That's the one privacy coin we currently support. We were the first multi-asset wallet to support Monero. I think several followed suit, but at the time that we supported Monero, there was no support other than the dedicated Monero wallets. And when we supported Monero, we also immediately supported being able to swap into and out of it. So people could finally get Monero directly from like Bitcoin or Ether right from within the app and not have to go to some weird remote, exchange, create some account there, then transfer the money out of it. And it was just all complicated. So we saw definitely a huge demand for it. Even before we supported it, once we supported it, a lot of users really appreciated that support. It was nice and seamless all inside of our app. But yeah, we do support Monero. That's the one privacy coin. We are looking at others such as Zcash, which in my understanding of Pirate Chain is very, very similar, if not almost identical from the viewpoint of software support. We worked very, very closely with the Zcash team, or I guess better called now the Electric Coin Company team, in developing a mobile-friendly SDK or software development kit for non-technical people that will allow mobile apps such as Edge to be able to support Zcash much more easily than with the tooling that's available today, specifically private Zcash. We do not support Zcash in transparent mode, and that was a conscious decision. It's a conscious decision because we didn't want to support both and have that confusion, much like the reason why Pirate Chain only supports the shielded addresses. We wanted to support only the shielded addresses of Zcash, which is why we work really closely with the team. We don't have support yet. It's not there, but the development kit is done, and it's now a bit now on our hands. It was handed off by the Electric Coin Company team over to us. Now that that's done, it's a bit more in our hands, but we just have to free up some resources to get support.
Yeah. So everyone watching this already knows that at the Crypto Vigilante and at the Dollar Vigilante, we really like things that are private by default. And so right now we really like Monero, obviously. We like the Monero forks like WowNero, but that zero knowledge proof, private by default, the protocol level, Pirate Chain we see it as everything we've ever wanted Zcash to be, and you guys know we're championing it. So recently you had a conversation this week. You were part of one of the weekly meetings with the Pirate Chain guys with the How was that? How did that go?
It was a blast, actually. I love the format. They're doing it on Discord where other people could come in and ask questions. It was kind of like a clubhouse, but with a friendly UI where I could actually see something on my desktop and people can raise their hand and whatnot. But I had a blast. It was great. People kept asking questions, a lot of great questions. They really appreciated what we're doing, wanted to dive a little bit deeper. And plus, I was able to talk with one of the core developers of the Pirate Chain and actually ask some questions the other way. I was able to ask questions about the implementation, the differences with existing private coins, and it actually looks very, very promising for apps that have support for specifically the private version of Zcash, the sapling addresses and transactions to be able to support Pirate Chain. So that sounds really promising. Once we're able to get some of the SDKs for Zcash supported inside of Edge, then we should be able to easily have Pirate Chain support.
Right on. That's awesome. That's good news. Yeah. So right now, we are in a very interesting time in crypto where there's, I think, a lot of confusion amongst exchanges, right? Where you have exchanges that seem to have done their homework and they support privacy coins like Monero. And the prime example of this in the US would be Kraken. And then you have exchanges that seem very apprehensive. The issue of blockchain analytics, right? And the fact that you could your coin, what we call it the Crypto Vigilante, your surveillance coin, your transparent coin like Bitcoin, Ethereum, right? Coins that have a transparent ledger. That coin will always be susceptible to being possible, to having all of the results of being non-fungible. And
Right.
recently, we saw something very interesting happen with Paxos, where a user of Paxos was sent a letter where they were flagged because they sent some BTC to a Wasabi wallet. So no longer are these exchanges looking for dirty coin or tainted coin in regards to the past before you received the crypto and you took it to their financial institution. But now, after you purchase a coin via KYC AML, they are following you and what you do with that coin. And if you take that coin to a place that is deemed suspicious, you will be flagged and your accounts might be frozen. So being in that space, Paul, I would love to hear from you, like, what are your challenges now? What do you see happening in the future? What have you had to deal with? I would love to get some inside perspective from someone that manages that offers people a self-custody exchange like Edge.
Yeah, this is a great question, and also one that lends itself to some amazing discussions. So, one of the reasons why Paxos would flag an address going to a wallet such as what you said, it was Wasabi, right?
Yes,
Is that
Wasabi,
they are one of the few
yes.
wallets. They are one of the few wallets that implement a significant level of privacy layered on top of Bitcoin. Wasabi and I think Samurai are really known for that, and I really give them a lot of credit for that. It's something that in the days of Airbits, we really wanted to bake into Bitcoin ourselves. And you mentioned how we were contributing to and utilizing LibBitcoin. The reason for that was the origins of LibBitcoin and what it supported. It was from Amir Taki. It was for Dark Wallet. And one of our visions in Airbits was to be the dark wallet for the masses. And what I mean by that is we wanted to provide that level of privacy that the crypto anarchists and the pirates of the world would want in their technology, but deliver it in a product where even people that don't give a damn, right? All the millennials that are using Tinder and using Venmo, for Christ's sake, which screams at the top of a mountain, hey, I just sent $10 to my buddy because he gave me, a foot massage, whatever, right? That type of anti-privacy type of product, which is being used by so many people. We wanted to deliver a product in Airbits that gave them privacy, even though they didn't give a damn. And so let's get back to your question, Hannah. Why is this relevant? Is because when you only build products that are private, but with a user experience designed for people that care about privacy, you end up being that red flag. You're kind of that little red light blip that governments and entities can look at and go, oh, you're using that? Well, now you're not a normal person. You're one of those privacy people. You're one of those people that are trying to do things in the dark, probably doing illicit activity, even if you're not. But if you deliver privacy technology to the masses and everybody's using it, even grandma, and even the people don't give a damn, the people are using Venmo, suddenly you can't suddenly single out this product as being the thing that the illicit actors use because everyone else is using it. Case in point example, one of the ironically most private, and this is arguable, admittedly, probably a bunch of people and your listeners will argue this, but to my best understanding, one of the most private messaging apps is actually Apple's iMessage, end-to-end encrypted by default. And we've heard of the stories of the US government trying to get into the messages inside of someone's iPhone and how difficult that was for them and how Apple themselves couldn't do it. Apple created a product that, for the most part, a lot of the privacy focused community don't really care for, like they use Android, but realize that they got mass adoption of that product. And so mass adoption of a privacy focused product is part of how you get adoption of privacy for the people that do care about it. That's the core thing that I want to make sure your listeners understand is you don't get privacy just by having a private based product. You get privacy by having that product used by more people than just that community that cares about privacy. That's when the community then gets it for themselves. So Signal as an example, well, you have an account on Signal, you're one of those people, one of those privacy people. But if it gets more mass adopted, which fortunately for the sake of a WhatsApp that compromised and, basically shot themselves in the foot, I saw a bunch of people, your friends on Signal, your friends on Signal, your friends on Signal. I'm like, whoa, cool. So now if everybody's using it, we're no longer red flags for being users of Signal. Right. And I actually there's a group of friends from college that were on WhatsApp. I created that same group on Signal, invited them all. We're now chatting on there. Now suddenly all those are just regular people. They're not even cryptocurrency people. They're just friends, from college. I'm no longer a red flag for using Signal. That I think is the core challenge that we've got. And I think the reason why those addresses were red flagged for going to Wasabi is because Wasabi and other similar wallets are built for those privacy focused people. The user experience is much more challenging. And until we make it mass adopted, we're going to keep getting those red flags.
So, wow, I mean, you open up so many questions here for me. And I guess the first one that comes to mind is like, what would you recommend for an entrepreneur watching this or someone working in crypto that cares about privacy? What can they do? From your experience, what would you think is the path for them to take to make this adopted by the masses?
It is definitely based on user experience. Don't think privacy at all costs. I think that's one of the biggest mistakes is we throw out the baby with the bathwater. So a classic example of this is PGP, right? Pretty good privacy. It's a protocol for you to do encrypted and signed messages that you could use over email, right? Ever seen someone's PGP key when they send you an email, has a little PGP key at the bottom? Well, that protocol has been around since probably the 90s, right? It's been around forever. Does anybody send encrypted email over PGP? No. If you think that there's any amount of traffic over PGP, you're sadly mistaken. The traffic that does occur is once again those privacy type people, right? Where you see an encrypted email, maybe Google sees an encrypted email over their wires, but by and large, people aren't using it. Why didn't they use it? A lot of the cypherpunk purists said, well, there isn't a good way to share the public key, right? In order for you to encrypt a message and send it to me, I need to share my public key with you. And they're like, oh, well, where will we put it? We put it on a centralized server, but then that centralized server knows people's public keys and it could be compromised, blah, blah, blah. They were so diehard on finding the perfect solution that they ended up implementing nothing. Like nothing got implemented. So therefore, hardly anyone uses PGP. As opposed to saying, hey, what if I were to send you just an in the clear email, but as a part of that, my PGP key went in the headers of the email. Right. So there's one in the clear email, but then when you respond back, it gets encrypted. So suddenly you hide encryption to the end user and they just naturally get it. Andreas Antonopoulos gave a great talk about this early on at 2013 when I wasn't even, when I didn't have Airbits. I was just, ideating how I wanted to get involved in crypto. He gave a great presentation in LA and he said, encryption needs to be invisible. The most mass adopted form of encryption is one that you, as end users don't even know is happening, which is that little green lock in your browser, right? That's SSL encryption. SSL is not perfect. Right? Ask any cryptographer, the protocol is not perfect, but it's so mass adopted, right? You just go to a URL, you type it in your browser, boom, you get that lock. And now none of the people in between you and that server can see that traffic, encrypted by default. Now they've launched a new TLD domain .app. That's actually where Edge is on. Edge is on edge.app. And they've made it such that you can't actually go to a .app website unless it's SSL encrypted. Whereas .com could be encrypted or not. .app must be encrypted. So they've even taken a further step. It's still not perfect, right? SSL has third-party key storage providers, certificate authorities, but it at least gets the job done and it gets you that 80% there. So once again, getting back to your question, Rafael, is what do I recommend for the entrepreneurs that are looking to build? Is exactly what you care about it with Pirate Chain. Make it on by default. And that's what I loved about Monero, which is why that was the first private coin that we built, is to the end user, it just feels like they're sending crypto. If you're used to sending any other crypto, Ethereum, Bitcoin, there's nothing else you got to do. Scan a QR code, send money. On my phone, I see that I received money. I see my balance. I send money again. And if you can do that with a protocol, a user interface that doesn't feel any different than the non-private version, that's when you've got a killer app and a killer product. And then, of course, from there, it's like the marketing, blah, 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 get it out into the hands of people. That's the most important thing, is the private and secure by default with no extra switches and dials and jump through hoops to get it.
So in recent time, we're seeing more and more of a rift between people within BTC regarding privacy, and
Yeah.
a lot of us are expecting an actual civil war to break out within BTC on the topic of privacy in the future. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
so a lot of people wanted to a lot of within the Civil War, a lot of the BTC maximalists were like, well, you know what? We need a smaller blocks for the sake of privacy, so we can move things onto a second layer, the Lightning Network, which I want to talk to you about in a little bit.
Hmm.
But now we started seeing institutional money coming in, and we have people that are advocating for more blockchain analytics on BTC, and these are these corporate institutional voices. So BTC is being pushed by by the same institutional money that is raising the price. BTC is being pushed to be more transparent.
Hmm.
What are your thoughts? What do you think is going to happen with BTC? Since we have this contention now forming
Right.
within that community.
I'll say this. I actually have nothing against companies founded around blockchain analytics. My take is that information is totally public. If you're trying to suppress companies from analyzing that data, you'll never succeed, right? It's like saying, hey, I'm going to go and put my photos of my family out on my front door, but try to tell people not to look at it. Like private sensitive, or take a video of you and your girlfriend in bed and put it out in the front door and say, please don't look at it. Please don't look at it. Please don't look at it. It's not realistic. The best part about having blockchain analytics is now you know what to fight against, right? You actually can start building technologies against it, right? When a threat exists, you start building counter threat models. How do you avoid being able to get tracked? So Lightning Network is a step, in some ways, is a step in the right direction. It does provide more privacy because transactions, from sender to recipient, only go through those nodes that are involved, right? They're only the people with the liquidity involved in that transaction see the transaction. They're not just broadly on chain, fully public. It's slightly a step in the wrong direction, and I'm probably going to get slammed by any maximalists that are out there listening to this, but then again, I'm always getting slammed by maximalists with respect to Lightning Network. It's a slight step in the wrong direction in the sense that when I transact, that node that I am transacting with does see all of my transactions. Whichever node I'm connecting to, they will see my transactions. They'll know how much I'm sending. So
yeah, every Lightning hub is a centralized entity.
I won't call it centralized. That I don't even like using the word centralized, decentralized, because it's a big gray area. It's not like a switch or centralized versus decentralized. But anyway, it's mostly that it is an entity of some sort. It doesn't have to be one entity. You might have several that you could choose from. But when I, for example, broadcast the Bitcoin network, there doesn't have to be a single entity that I broadcast to. I can broadcast to multiple, right? And so someone else can broadcast for me. But when I make a transaction on the Lightning Network, there is a very specific entity that has liquidity that can transmit for me. So it's both. I think it's just a trade-off in privacy. I'm not going to say it's worse or better. It's a trade-off in privacy that makes privacy better in some ways compared to transparent blockchains, but then makes it worse in other ways. It also does trend to have liquidity centralization, right? It's not centralization of the currency itself, but liquidity will tend to centralize in the Lightning Network. And that can cause, I won't call it necessarily privacy issues, but censorship. There's a potential to cause censorship issues there. So that's a bit of a concern that I have about the Lightning Network, but it does improve privacy in some ways, not to the same degree that a protocol like Pirate Chain would. That you're on the main layer and you get incredible levels of privacy by default. So it won't even remotely compare to what like a Zcash, Monero, or Pirate Chain can accomplish.
I was looking through your wallet while you were talking through the Edge. You guys do you guys have Lightning support right now on Edge?
No, not at all. No, we do not. Yeah.
Is there a reason why? Do you plan on having any?
Yeah, user experience. So just like I said, I think privacy needs to be great user experience by default. I think the protocol you support should also have a solid, great user experience by default. And definitely at the time that Lightning was developing, we were closely looking at it. And we revisit Lightning every so often. Right? We can't be checking on it every single day. We've got other stuff that we've got to do. But I'd say every 3 to 6 months, we revisit and say, hey, what are the different developments on Lightning? And fundamentally, it felt to us that the user experience from a true self-custody model of Lightning. I want to differentiate that from the custodial Lightning. Obviously, if you do things custodially, you can offer a great user experience because people, that's just basically a bank, feels like a bank. I know a lot of people have given LN Strike a lot of credit, like, oh my God, look how easy it is to use Lightning. And Jack Mallers has done a great job, and no offense to him at all, because I think he has done an amazing job from being a great entrepreneur and providing a product that people want. But it's not a product that I would use to show how awesome of an experience Lightning is, because it's fully custodial, right? All those transactions are happening through his services that are sending Lightning transactions. It's still a great service. It's one that, heck, I'd even consider integrating from the viewpoint of his integration with banks. Like LN Strike actually connects to the banking world. So to me, that's entirely valuable in and of itself. But it's not a way to compare and evaluate the user experience that you can get from the Lightning Network, because it's custodial. So from a true non-custodial or self-custody solution, we couldn't find a good way for Lightning to be really good and seamless without us coming in and having to do either route everyone through us, meaning we are the one Lightning node that all of our users go through. That would be required to improve the user experience. And that is the thing that we didn't want to compromise on. Until we could find a good way to do that, and we reevaluate every few months, we're going to hold off on that level of integration. Plus, we are also defined not as just a wallet for sending and receiving, but primarily for exchange functionality. Ironically, this is where I think Lightning can shine. This is, I think, the most interesting promise of Lightning is not as a medium to pay for a coffee, micropayments. I think it's actually interesting from the viewpoint of exchange and the ability to build a decentralized cross-chain exchange over Lightning is actually quite compelling. Fast, cheap, instant swaps using the Lightning Network, even if you're using a centralized service like a Changely or ChangeNow. If I could go Lightning BTC to Lightning LTC in half a second, that would be amazing. And that's where I think Lightning really could shine. And we hope to integrate it for that purpose in the near future.
That sounds awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, I think it would be really dumb for anyone to think that. I mean, it would be really dumb for anyone to not want Lightning to thrive. The Lightning Network is the success of the Lightning Network is something that is beneficial to all of us. If it, that really is needed for BTC. So yeah, even myself as a big blocker, I hope the best for the Lightning Network. But yeah, it was definitely a gamble that the BTC community took in focusing on scaling on a second layer. And sometimes in life, making risky decisions can either be very successful or they could be very challenging. So, but either way, I mean, I'm really happy that you're seeing a new use case for the Lightning Network. Something that made me think of open transactions. Have you heard of open transactions? It was something being worked on a couple of years ago. It was kind of not
open transactions by
fellow traveler Chris Odom.
Chris Odom, there you go. That was the name I was looking for. Chris Odom. We've actually chatted with Chris, and I think Open Transactions, or at least the company behind it, had been acquired and had been working on some multi-sig wallet security solutions. So I haven't looked at incredible detail on Open Transactions, in all honesty. So I don't know the protocol by heart, at least not off the top of my head. I'd have to revisit it. But anyway, you'd mentioned it. I'm familiar with it to a very high level degree. I'd love to hear a little bit more about it from your understanding.
It was built for cross-chain transactions. They developed it along literally next door to the Ethereum group when they were creating Ethereum in Zug, Switzerland. So it's something that they never launched an ICO. They always saw an ICO as something that that they just didn't agree with that practice. So they're very purist in that regard. They're, for the most part, Bitcoin maximalist. Right. But it's a good project that if anyone's listening and wants to learn more about it, that's opentransactions.org. I think it's probably one of the best kept secrets in crypto that no one's really looking into anymore, but they should, because it's pretty much the logical conclusion of Ricardian contracts, and this is based on the work of Ian Grigg, who created secure and open transactions back in the day. So but here I want to ask you about I have to ask you this, and it might open up a can of worms here, but I am a fan of doing things that people tell me not to do. of looking into places where people tell me that I shouldn't be looking at. I'm a rebel, and I'm okay with that. I think that profit seeking is a lonely road, and as a capitalist, you should be okay with not being with the crowd. I think that if you're ever find yourself agreeing with the crowd completely, then you really are not in a place where you're going to be profitable in the future. So I've been one of the few people that have always looked into BSV, and really I've looked into BSV and I found a lot of merit in what they're doing, and I'm starting to see a development, a phenomena to start taking place within BSV wallets, which to me is incredible. So if you look at a wallet like Relay X or Handcash, you open up that wallet, and in BSV you can use the Bitcoin protocol and the miners as the back end of your startup, right? So you open up a wallet, and that is your gateway into all of these Bitcoin SV applications, games, games, Twitch, which is like Twitter, Relica.org, which is like Instagram on the BSV blockchain. So that new way of that it's almost like their approach to Bitcoin is so different, because they see Bitcoin as the one global ledger for all these applications, all under one unit of account. And they go in and you open up your wallet, right? Like Handcash wallet. And you have your access to Twitch, to Relica, to Haste, which is a game, and there's a bunch of games there, and they really embrace the notion of microtransactions, and now they're moving into nano transactions. So I really want to ask you about this, because this is a different worldview of what Bitcoin is capable of what the original Bitcoin protocol is capable of, and it's something that people are now looking into, because there's a lot of propaganda saying don't look there, because of Craig Wright. But if you move away that person of Craig Wright and you look at what all these entrepreneurs are doing, it's almost like you see a completely different world. And it's something that I can't keep myself from being inspired. I'm inspired by what they're doing. What are your thoughts about this? Because it's really something very new to crypto, very new to Bitcoin, something unlike anything you'll see in any other protocol like Ethereum, because you're using one unit of account. You're not using a token for this, a token for that. You're using one unit of account, one protocol, one blockchain for all applications. What are your thoughts on this?
So this reminds me of when I got back into Bitcoin in 2013, and there was just the inkling of talk of what they called Bitcoin 2.0. And I remember Andreas Antonopoulos, he doesn't really say this much anymore, but he said, Bitcoin is a store of value, a unit of account, a payment mechanism, and oh, by the way, it's programmable, and we're going to be able to do financial applications on it.
Yes,
so much,
exactly.
It's so much bigger. You never hear him saying that anymore. He does support Ethereum to some degree, but he's definitely like Bitcoin. Now, that is the inkling that I get out of the BSV community, is definitely let's take Bitcoin. It's as if Bitcoin 2.0 that they were talking about in 2013 is now what we're seeing in the BSV community. But admittedly, you nailed it. People that are alienated by BSV are heavily alienated by the main face of the project, the main faces of the project, the Calvin Ayers of the project, and the Craig Wrights. So that's a bit unfortunate, because it's hard to separate the technology from the people behind it. Same thing as it's hard to separate Facebook from Mark Zuckerberg. Like, the two are just intimately tied. And if Mark Zuckerberg said something absolutely stupid, then you'll start to lose credibility in Facebook. People lost credibility in the United States when people thought that our president would say dumb things, and probably said a bunch of dumb things. So you can't separate the product from the face of the product. It's super hard. And so that's unfortunate, because I value what I consider to be all experimentation on cryptocurrency. So in a way, Lightning and small blocks and BTC are valuable experiments. And the maximalists will obviously hate me for calling Bitcoin an experiment still. But I think it's still an experiment. I think a 1 megabyte block is an experiment. Lightning Network is an experiment. And we don't know long-term that it will work. But I value
it's
that
an
experiment.
Amazing experiment. I have to say, as a big blocker, like you can't, like what you can do with BTC, you can't really do with BSV. Well, you can probably do it right now, but you can't send transactions via satellite. It's like the Pico satellites that Blockstream has up that that they've been.
You could. Someone just has to launch the satellite. Like, that's nothing. You could do that with Ethereum. Someone just literally has to go launch the satellite. It's nothing about the protocol. So the protocol, right, is kind of the the fundamental difference. And that's where I see this Bitcoin 2.0-ish behavior and drive in the BSV community, but it's so hard to separate it from the name and face. Now, given that, I think they're both experiments. They're just experiments in the complete opposite ends. And just so people know, I'm a Libra by sign. And if you know what the sign of a Libra is, it's a balance. So I tend to be that balance guy. I don't go in extreme one way. I don't go in extreme another. Probably the reason why I'm not very popular on Twitter. You notice the most popular people on Twitter are the extremists. All right, they're the ones that are yelling and screaming in one direction, even and alienate a bunch of people. But that the people that they don't alienate they're really rallying behind them because they're the cheerleaders of a cause. And because I take a much more balanced approach, and I think the BTC is a good experiment. I think BSV is a good experiment. I find that personally, I'm aligned with on a protocol level in the technology of what BCH is trying to do because it's somewhere balanced in between those two. Given that, I think it's an extreme use of the blockchain that BSV is trying to do. And we'll see whether or not that impact that many small blockers will say, hey, if you make the blocks too big, you're going to centralize. And I've always said, yeah, but you can make it a little bit bigger. That's what I've always said. We can make it a little bit bigger and a little bit bigger, and computers get faster, make it a little bit bigger. The statement that, well, let's just make it crazy big, put everything on it, put the whole internet on it. I don't know that that's striking the right balance, but only time will tell. Right. So that's what's going to determine whether or not that model and putting everything on the blockchain, putting Instagram and Twitter on the blockchain, doing instant messaging on the blockchain. Is that too much for a blockchain? Time will tell. My inclination is it might prove to be. What happens like when we ended up shrinking BSV nodes to a small handful in a single place? Might that happen? Like I said, it's worth the experiment. I'm not against it. I think it's worth a try. I'm glad someone is doing it. I'm glad a group of people, I'm glad a lot of people are doing it and backing it. And we've supported BSV while many other companies have pulled support. Many others have said, we're not supporting. We're like, nope, we're going to continue to support. We're going to continue to make sure that we have exchange providers that support it because we want that experiment to push through. Do I think that that's the right balance? Not necessarily so, but I've been proven wrong. So please keep trying. Keep pushing it to its limits. We'll see where it goes. If it's wrong and it ends up crashing down and burning, so be it. If it ends up flourishing and we find that this is a realistic use case that balances centralization with utility, then great. That's kind of my stance on it. Hopefully people accept that and I don't get hated from both sides.
No, I'm in the same place as you, same exact place as you. Like at the Crypto Vigilante, well, Jeff has always been more on the side of he's more partial to Bitcoin Cash. I am more partial on I'm a miner maximalist. I see myself as someone that give miners complete autonomy and they are the owners of the club. They're not the bouncers of the club. That's always been my perspective. So when we started the Crypto Vigilante, I'm like, wait a minute, we can't just have this whole big blocker approach. So we brought in Mr. X, Mr. W, who are small blockers. And so our subscribers, we make sure that they get a well-rounded perspective for all arguments. And we have a very healthy dialogue constantly. And I agree with you. I appreciate what everyone's doing. I really do. But I am just so geeky about Bitcoin's computational power. That and privacy coins to me, I'm not a Libra, but I love Monero. I love Pirate Chain. I'm representing Pirate right now. I love Pirate Chain. I love zero knowledge proofs by default at the protocol level. I love privacy. But at the same time, that bit aspect of Bitcoin, right? The computational aspect of Bitcoin, the bit aspect of Bitcoin, not just the coin, but the bit. That's something that just mind boggles me. And the fact that I can see startups using miners as the back end of their business blows my mind, because that right there, I see it as taking out Silicon Valley. It literally, you don't need Silicon Valley anymore. It's like, we're done. We don't need you. Anyone can start just think about this, Paul. Anyone can start a startup on Bitcoin's original protocol at scale. And right away, they can theoretically use all of the Bitcoin miners as the back end of their business. And right away, they have whatever these miners, however they want to mutate their infrastructure as time goes on, they can become giant data centers. They're just a giant computer that is the back end of your business. And right away, you can start competing with big tech. So to me, that just mind boggles me, man.
I always like to value technology by what it delivers, not by what it is. So what does it deliver to the masses by having miners as the back end of my tech? Really, what does it actually deliver? Does it deliver censorship resistance? If it does, great, because we don't have Silicon Valley with Amazon, AWS that can censor transactions, censor what apps can operate, and blah, blah, blah. Great. If that's what you're trying to deliver, great. If you're building an app in the traditional Silicon Valley form that's not concerned about censorship resistance, which I think you should be to at least some degree, then there's not as much of a value add. And then, of course, what's the compromise? There's always a compromise. Like I said, the Libra in me is always finding what's the balance here. So say, great, you've got these miners that are the back end of your technology, but the compromise is there is an inherent per transaction cost, even though it's small to that back end. There is an inherent throughput limitation. I'm sharing that throughput with a bunch of other users that are putting data on blocks. And there's also this inherent unknown aspect. Like say, this is an experiment, we agreed. So if you're trying to build a product on top of unknown technology and you want to take that high risk, high reward challenge, then great. If you're trying to build a product where you kind of know what you kind of see the light at the end of the tunnel, you know who you can sell that product to. Say it's some B2B play where I'm going to build some app that's going to save hotels a bunch of money to do better reservations and whatnot. Like the value of being on a blockchain is very minimal to me. And I don't want to sit on an unknown, volatile, technology. Then that won't necessarily be an option. So I claim to say I'm not a maximalist at anything, right? And so not even a privacy maximalist, because I do find that balance is so important, because you've got to deliver to the masses to get any value out of it. And the masses don't care about any one thing to the extreme, right? They care about what matters to their life. And so, yes, it's awesome that you can build an entire startup with miners as your backend, but what's the product? What's the actual product you're delivering? What's the value that you're bringing with whatever product you're building on top? And then if you find a use case, a unique use case where, yes, miners as your backend cannot be done with Silicon Valley, AWS, DigitalOcean, whatever, Azure, then hats off to you. You found that use case, right? You found that clear use case. But if you're trying to build the next Twitter and compete against Twitter, and it just happens to have miners on the back end, and there's no additional value add to the end user, you're just going to be running into a brick wall. That's my take. You're running right into a brick wall. You've got to have some.
You would own your own data. You can do microtransactions. You can pay for whatever programming you want as bounties on this.
Own your own data. That's one of the most ill-defined statements in our industry. So own your own data. Well, if my data is out on a public blockchain for other people to see, it's public. Nobody owns it. I don't own it because someone can grab it and use it. I can go then and I can do blockchain analytics on all of the quote unquote tweets that are on a blockchain, and then aggregate that and advertise based on it. So I don't own it if I put anything publicly. No, but nobody does. So there's Silicon Valley owns it. There's I own it. To me, my definition of own my data is nobody can see it but me unless I give it out to you. Right? That's my definition of own data. Maybe people disagree with me on that, but if I'm the only one that can see it, clearly I'm the one that owns it. And then the other side of it is nobody owns it. So there's Silicon Valley and big tech owns it. I own it, and then nobody owns it. And once you put stuff on a public blockchain, then it becomes a nobody owns it, not you. Because heck, you can't even sell it at that point. You can't sell it because why would I buy it? I'll just take it off the blockchain. So that I think is a key thing people have to differentiate is nobody can monetize it, but really neither can I.
Right.
Silicon Valley can't, but neither can I.
I agree. It's almost like, okay, yes, I understand the value of privacy and privacy coins. I love Monero. Monero is our favorite cryptocurrency at the Crypto Vigilante by far.
Sweet.
We love it because it's what gets us there now, It gets us freedom now. But there is a use case for public blockchains, right? To create these public quote unquote goods, right? Public offerings like the Twitters, the Facebooks of the future. And so, that's a very interesting dilemma that you put forth as to if you really own your content on a public blockchain. Well, I mean, you can be monetized for it, right? Directly.
I don't know. Well, directly through projects like Hive, right? So Hive monetizes you for your content, but it's monetizing you for creation of the content. After that content's created, anybody can use it. You don't own it anymore. Right? I can go and take and rip out your blog article and post it somewhere else. And you don't really, you in a way don't really have any control over it. It's fully plugged. Or I can just read it. Anybody can read it without ever having to pay a cent. because it's public. And I really ask myself, when someone says I want to make the blockchain version of Facebook, I'll say I will never use it. I honestly will never use it. Why? Because while Facebook sees everything, you, Rafael, don't see the photos that I might send to my mom on Facebook.
Right.
Right. Now, if Facebook were to leak, a leak of Facebook is equivalent of having Facebook on a blockchain. That is the equivalent. If Facebook servers got compromised and all that data got put on the dark web, that's the exact equivalent of having Facebook on a blockchain. So now ask yourself, what would you rather use? Would you rather use Facebook on a blockchain or just use Facebook? Now, granted, I don't actually use Facebook. The only thing I do on Facebook is to shill crypto. All my friends, I go, you're never on Facebook. And when they see me on there, it's because I'm posting like, hey, Bitcoin hit $50,000, Ethereum hit $2,000, and that's it. But really realize public ledgers are significantly worse for privacy when it comes to data that we're sharing between ourselves. When we're sharing data between one another, public blockchains tend to be far worse. And social media as a whole, whether it's on a blockchain or not, is just terrible for privacy. So
do you think NFTs are pointless then? Do you think NFTs are pointless then? Because I mean, I can take a picture of the NFT that you just bought, and I can say I pretty much literally own the art. I actually do challenge.
I challenge the utility of NFTs for digital art. Honestly, like I'm not a big fan of NFTs for the use of digital art. Now, NFTs that have an association to something in the real world that you can claim ownership. So therefore, if I'm an artist and I actually created a painting, made an NFT out of it, and I adhere, you have to trust me though, I adhere to saying, hey, anyone with this NFT can at any point in time claim ownership of the physical art. Now that NFT has value, but you now have to trust me. All right. But if you trust the person that connects the real world to the blockchain, that's the problem with artwork, right? Is like there has to be this person that connects it, whether it's law enforcement with a gun that says, hey, this person has this NFT signature, you have to give them the piece of art, whether it's law enforcement or it's the artists themselves. If you trust that person, then that NFT has value. If it's, I took a picture of my feet and made that an NFT and somehow that has value, that to me is just, it's so mind-blowingly dumb. I can't figure it out.
I love you. Dude, I love how honest you are. Thank you. Yes. So,
but there is a use for NFTs. I'll say there is a use,
right?
But not what I'm seeing go crazy through the roof and interest today. That to me makes no sense. Games, even like maybe NFTs that attach to a sword in a game. Great. That's there's some actual value to something that I can use outside of just ownership of this NFT. But yeah, just owning a picture. Someone posted, what is it, a $60,000 NFT of the color red, a pixel that's the color red. Oh, come on, really?
I think people are starting to discover something though with this, and it has to do, but they still haven't found it yet. And I think there's two dudes
in experimentation.
Crypto. I think there's two people in crypto that have taken digital scarcity to the next level. And these two guys are also working on BSV. I know people don't like to talk about BSV, but guys, when we talk about digital scarcity, what's happening with Boost Proof of Work? Have you heard of the project by Daniel Krawitz? So pretty much what he's doing is that you can grab any content whatsoever, whether it be a picture, some arguments. Maybe you put an argument out there, a piece of poetry, music. You throw it up on the Bitcoin SV blockchain, and then instead of liking it, you buy hash power, and it's almost like wrapping energy around this digital entity, and you're using miner energy to enforce a meritocracy of value. In a sense, if you own, in a sense, you're spending energy just like a miner spends energy for items that are digitally scarce, or ideas, whatever it may be, and you're wrapping
ideas. The thing is, an idea is not digital scarce. An idea is never digitally scarce.
Right. I agree with you. I agree with you on that. I'm just saying that this is it's a lot to say, and I don't know if we have time to really expound on it, but it's proof of work, boostproofofwork.com, boostpow.com, and it's using Bitcoin miner energy as a voting mechanism. So the ramification there is that you're not just is that you're wasting energy when you favor something, and by doing that, you are
Yeah, you're proving that the money that could go to you, or the money that you've expended in mining, you
yeah
feel is worthy enough to give credibility to the ownership of
of
some
XYZ, yeah, or
sorry,
to the
XYZ
value,
of
yeah,
digital. Correct. Now the
exactly,
question is, does this thing actually have value by me doing that? Just
yeah.
because I've done that, what makes that thing valuable, or what makes that thing digitally scarce? And if it's literally just a JPEG that anybody can grab off the internet and anyone can grab off a blockchain,
Or they
then
just lost their energy. They just lost their energy, right? They lost their money. So it's a costly signal, is really what Kraywitz would say. It's a costly
I just don't think
signal.
I don't think there's an application for that though. I'll fundamentally believe that there's not an application for that, for just a digital for a digital, purely digital work. Now, where there is some application to that, once again, you got to tie it to the real world, and you'll need someone to enforce that tie. Once again, likely with a gun, which is unfortunate, but someone to enforce that tie. Case in point example of this would be, if you were to invent something. This is something that's been told to me a while back. If you were to, for example, write a playwright, you're gonna, a screenplay. You write a screenplay. It's a story, a book that you own, and you wanted to copyright it. Obviously, as soon as you send it to your editor and you send it to someone else, and it gets before it gets kind of published into the mainstream with proof that you're the one that wrote it, it's easy for someone to steal, right? It's easy for someone to steal. So what's one of the recommendations people said that you should do with anything that's your own creation, any kind of subjective creative work of art? Literally mail it to yourself. Mail it to yourself, put a stamp on it, and don't open the envelope. So in a court of law, you now have a timestamp of when this envelope existed with its own contents inside of it. So I wrote it, you write a book, literally put a bunch of piece of paper in an envelope and mail it to yourself and don't open it. Now, if ever there was any challenge to who created that work, you could say, I know I created it. Here's the envelope, opening up in courtroom, slide it out. Look at all those words I wrote. Look at the timestamp on that envelope, right? Can you provide a timestamp earlier than mine? No, you can't. Okay, well, that's a pretty good proof that I'm the one that created that piece of art, whether that be a photo, music notes, or a book, whatever, screenplay. That can just get replaced with a blockchain. And that's as simple as taking that data, hashing it, putting it on the blockchain, and saying that, boom, now that is digitally timestamped on the blockchain. You call that an NFT? The only difference between that and an NFT is that I can sign it and send it to someone else. That's literally the only difference, right? But the most important part is that there is this tie between what's on the blockchain and the real world that now gives it value. So if I created the book and I claim I had ownership of it, and I suddenly say, I'm going to sell it to you, Rafael, well, I'll send you this NFT. Now you own the book. And if someone in a court wanted to challenge that because they published the book under their name, now you have proof that you have ownership of it because you've got that NFT, which has that signature of that hashed data of my book sitting on the blockchain. There goes a use case, but pretty much every use case I've found that's useful in NFT has to tie to something off the blockchain, right? It has to tie to something that's more real world tangible and not just a JPEG, which anyone can copy.
Hilarious. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for everything that you said, Paul. I really appreciate it. Yeah. So right now, let's go back to Edge because
yes. I mean, talk about Edge. Yeah.
We've been drilling on NFTs for a while.
Enjoy doing that.
No, but that's fine because
industry stuff.
Look, there's another. So there's another project which is 21E8, which does not use ASIC energy, but uses I think they use GPU and CPU, and they're trying to do the same thing that I mentioned regarding boost proof of work. These are experiments. Again, guys, I get geeky about these things. I recommend you guys look into them because it's only by having this Hayekian approach of really looking at crypto and experimenting with it that we will go to the next level, right? Because I think people are playing with this idea of digital scarcity, and I champion them for that. Yeah, I think to a certain degree, yeah, I agree with you. The NFT thing is a little bit silly, but hey, I mean, it is what it is. I mean,
Have
I'm
fun
not
with
going to
it.
keep people from having
ICOs were
fun.
silly too, but they, some good stuff came out of them. So just because it's silly doesn't mean I don't let people go ahead. I'm not going to hold anyone, hold a gun to anyone's head to say you should be selling the color red as an NFT. Go for it. If someone's stupid enough to buy it, let them. Yeah, like I let stupidity run wild. That's all fun.
So right now, with do you see jurisdictions becoming more draconian with exchanges in the near future? And
I think with centralized custodial exchanges, for sure. Like the travel rule is looking like it's going to start getting implemented. But the nice thing about it is, get this, Rafael, it's actually going to make the products that we give a shit about, that have privacy and autonomy, more valuable.
Right on.
Right? Because are you going to, so there's, I don't want to name names, but there is a wallet out there in the app stores that, it's not an exchange. It's not like a Kraken, Coinbase, or whatnot. It's just a pure, plain and simple wallet. Hold money, send, receive money. And a lot of people had promoted it initially because it was so simple to use. You can even Google login. You can create your account with Google on it. It was 100% custodial. So because it was 100% custodial, right? Those kind of apps are dead with the travel rule, right? With that regulation, that kind of app is dead. Guess why? Because in order for you to send money from a custodial service, you need to KYC the recipient address.
Could you please explain the travel rule to those that are listening that may not? Yeah.
Yes, the travel rule is a policy applied to banks and financial services that states when a bank transfers funds to another financial institution, they have to pass on KYC information of the sender to the recipient bank. So when I send a wire transfer from my account to, for example, your account, Rafael, my bank is actually sending my personal information to your recipient bank. And my bank has to know who you are. Like, I have to know that you are an existing customer and that you exist, and that the bank that I'm sending money to has to have KYC'd you in order to receive money. So now what they're doing is they're saying, well, these exchanges are centralized custodians. They're basically banks. And this is a fair thing. I'm not actually arguing with the travel. I think it's actually fair that they're applying this. I don't like banks. I don't like regulation. But if you're going to apply it to banks, you should apply it to something that looks, smells, and tastes like a bank, which is a centralized exchange. So now when a centralized exchange is sending money out, they are saying that in order for you to send money out, you have to know the exact same thing. You have to know who owns the recipient address. Like, who are you sending it to? And whoever you're sending it to, you have to send KYC information alongside with it. So when you send money from Coinbase to Kraken, Kraken's going to receive the information of the person at Coinbase along with that transaction. The only exception is if you're sending it to yourself. So if I transfer money from my Chase checking account to my Chase savings account, who gives a damn, right? Same sense. If I'm going to transfer money from my Kraken account to my self-hosted wallet, one that I fully control, then I prove ownership of my address and saying, hey, Kraken, this is actually my address. I can do a digital signature and prove ownership, and please send money to me. Okay, fine. That's not a big deal. Now, though, can Kraken now go arbitrarily send money to any address that's just a random number? No, because they can't KYC that address. They have no way to actually send KYC information to that address. That's a side channel. That's like normal internet traffic. That's not blockchain traffic. So this third, one of our kind of technically a competitor apps that I'm referring to on the App Store that was just a plain wallet and only send and receive money, that now would have to, in order to be compliant, would have to KYC its users, A, and B, only send to KYC'd addresses. So to me, that product is dead. That's no longer a product that needs to exist, period. Not only that, but it makes exchange wallets effectively dead for transacting and sending money. Right now, they're just exchanges. You deposit money from your own funds and you withdraw money from your own funds. But I can't go and take my Coinbase account and go pay a merchant or send my buddy some money that just happens to sit on his own wallet, self-custody. So I think it isolates the exchanges from the self-custody solutions and actually brings more value to the self-custody solutions. Because if you want to truly use crypto, you've got to have a self-custody solution. It's not usable from custodial. So pretty much, those are my thoughts.
So pretty much Coinbase becomes like PayPal almost. You can't really move crypto outside of out of Coinbase anymore. Wow,
You'll or you'll move it to just other custodial exchanges, and that's it.
Oh
But
wow.
you won't be able to you really use it from the viewpoint of like true utility of crypto. So that is why it's going to be a pain, because you're still gonna have to implement, like as a wallet, we're gonna have to implement some, not KYC, but proof of ownership of addresses. So if you want to withdraw to an address inside of Edge, then we prove that we own it, not necessarily with KYC, but with like a digital signature. The KYC is with the exchange, not with the self custody side, not with the self custody app. So that's my take on it. It's generally received as being a bad thing for the crypto world. And I think there's a nuance that people aren't realizing, is that I was expecting this from the very beginning, right? And I've always felt like custodial solutions are not going to be utility solutions. They're only going to be exchange and large institutional holding solutions. But for us to use crypto, we've got to own the keys.
You got to own your keys, guys, not your keys, not your crypto. Thank you for,
exactly.
This is an incredible conversation, Paul. I'm pretty sure the comment section is going to go wild with everything we've been talking about. Yeah. And this is the thing, I like talking to people that are open-minded and that, look at things critically. And I really want to have another conversation with you in the future, because there's so much to talk about, Paul.
Let's do it. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Because, we really, one thing that I see as almost a psyop within crypto is the fact that people have been almost indoctrinated or programmed to not talk with others that don't agree with them. So you have all this crypto tribalism and all this BS. And, at the Crypto Vigilante and the Dollar Vigilante, we're like, no, this is the place where we talk about everything and we're critical about everything. And I even call myself out, and I ask people to call us out if we become too dogmatic, or if you guys see us, because no, this is a place for everyone to come in and share ideas. And have respectful conversations, right? Nice. So I've had big blockers, small blockers. I've interviewed guys from Blockstream. I've interviewed people from BSV. I don't care. This is the place where we come have honest discussions, because we need that. We need that in the space. It's really annoying that people are so tribal.
Nice.
You mentioned
if people are open enough to go into your show and actually get into an honest discussion, I'm happy to go into a discussion with people that obviously don't agree with me, which is a lot of people, because of, once again, being on the balance side, you're neither on one extreme or another. But those are the discussions I love, just, with the people that aren't necessarily in agreement. But actually, as long as it's a respectful discussion. No,
right on, 100%. And the thing is that recently it's almost like I can put on my BTC hat, my Monero hat. I can put on the hat and speak that language. But what I think I'm going to start doing here for the YouTube channel is that I'm going to start having people from different perspectives come in and have a conversation, right?
Yeah.
So it's
definitely, let me be part of that. I'm all about it.
I want you to be part of this as well, because like you're someone that can put on different hats and think from different perspectives, because that's very much needed in crypto. Very much needed in crypto. Yeah, it's very much needed.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. No, thank you so much for being so open, honest, and critical. It seems like I don't know. A lot of this is the problem with this is that it's almost like people are scared to speak out, number one, and number two, there is a psychological phenomena of marketing that keeps people from really engaging in discourse. And you and I have been in crypto for a while, and we both know that there are interests now in crypto. There are special interests in crypto that want to have a agenda. They have a portfolio, and this is the media outlets that we use, that we patronize, and this is what we're going to talk about. And it's almost like, and that over there, you can't look at that. You're bad if you look at that. And it's from different perspectives. So it's really important to have these conversations. Do you have any thoughts on? Do you have any thoughts on that aspect of crypto? The whole social engineering per se? Yeah, tribalism.
Yeah, all I can say is it's kind of unfortunate, but I guess it's a necessity in the sense that people have their opinions, and people tend to end up in echo chambers. We're probably in a crypto echo chamber ourselves. Maybe it's not in the different extremes within crypto, but we're kind of in a crypto echo chamber ourselves. And so I try to stay balanced. I think people should try to stay balanced, but to each his own. Everyone has a different personality and they'll appeal to different parts of the ecosystem. I'll try to speak my mind and be honest about it. And as long as it's respectful, I've gotten into like, Bitcoin maximalist podcasts that are just, that's just fucking stupid is their response to some things I'll say. I'm like, okay, we'll describe why. And they'll not really have a whole lot of description. And so, that in both sides. So as long as we can be respectful, have good conversations, that to me is what's actually engaging and enjoyable, is getting into good conversations, even if it's with someone I disagree with. Happy to do that. Let's do it. Let's delve into it. We can wrap up this discussion, but let's get into another one where we talk with the other people in the community that have different opinions. I think it'll be make for some great content.
Right on. And look, guys, it's kind of unfortunate that I am the face of TCV. I say that in all honesty, because this is not just me. It's not just TCV. We have Ed Bugos, Jeff Berwick, Mr. X, Mr. W, and a bunch of other Mr. Alphabet. We have the whole alphabet of letters that we don't we don't
all
talk
26
about.
People in the world.
We have like 26 dudes with Mr. P, Mr. Z, Mr. whatever. But Mr. X has become a little bit more vocal, so it'd be great to have him on and to talk, because he's more of the small blocker perspective. He holds the small blocker perspective more. And right now he's really is like a Monero privacy maximalist. Monero pirate chain. But when it comes like down to Bitcoin, he's small blocker all the way. So if you're a subscriber of the Crypto Vigilante, you'll get his perspective too. And he'll give you the BTC perspective, and you'll see my perspective as well, which is a bigger blocker perspective. And but Paul, I think having you here has been amazing. Thank you so much for your time. Is there anything else you would like to tell us about Edge and the future of Edge and what we should be expecting for Edge in the near future?
Definitely check us out. First of all, we want to hear feedback from people, and you can find us on just simply edge.app. We're a mobile app on iOS and Android. Things coming up in the future, definitely more asset support, ideally more private assets. That is a big thing we want to support, such as Zcash and Pirate Chain. There's a few others that are coming down the pipe. As well, DeFi, that Bitcoin 2.0, that I personally use DeFi. I'll be the first to admit right now, I've gotten burned by centralized services. When I see, with centralized services going down and effectively losing people's money, I've been burned by that. And we want to incorporate solutions that don't have that kind of risk. And so incorporating financial services on top of just sending and receiving or just trading funds, that is also on the roadmap. And for those that care about the subtle difference, we're also looking at providing a desktop application for people that want that nice large interface on their computer. Right now, we're only mobile. Mobile first, that's kind of the way the industry generally thinks. And so we've had a mobile app for quite a number of years now. But we are looking at putting desktop into our near future. And then, of course, we are a self-custody exchange. That's what we define us as. People think of us as a wallet, but our functionality of the wallet is exchange functionality. And so one of the big things we do is we partner with many different services, and we are looking at being able to blanket the world with fiat on and off ramps through a lot of partnerships. So expect that we'll be launching new ways, new payment methods, and new regions, new countries, and locations for people to get into crypto using fiat, and also to get out of it in case they want to sell for whatever reason. So that's what you can expect from Edge. And definitely please check us out, edge.app, and send us some feedback.
Thank you so much, Paul. Guys, when you're done watching this, go look at yourself in the mirror. Remember that the most important person in all of crypto is you. You're the most important person in all of crypto. Crypto inverted the pyramid. You're the most important person in the economy now. Satoshi gave us fire. Run with it in the open market. Have a blast with it. Paul, thank you so much for being with us. And guys, like Berwick says, peace, love, and anarchy. Till next time, God bless. Take care.
Peace. Take care, guys.